Welcome to a brand new show on Talk TV's YouTube channel. I'm Mike Graham and I'm going to be telling you about the stories that I love and the stories that I hate. Welcome to Mike Graham's Heaven and Hell. Harry and Meghan and the Frogmore Cottage. So you might have heard this week they were back in the news. That's right. Harry and Meghan, the couple that send everybody into a complete and utter tiz, right? They're back in the news. Why? Because they've been evicted. Not evicted from the house they live in, but from the house they don't live in. The one in Frogmore. It's called Frogmore Cottage, even though it's got 6 bedrooms. Pretty big cottage, it seems to me. But it's on the Windsor estate, and King Charles has decided, rather cleverly, that he doesn't fancy having Meghan and Harry around anymore, because they make a bit of a nuisance of themselves. I mean, after all, he wrote that book called Spare, and absolutely peed all over everybody in the royal family, revealed that his brother was circumcised, revealed that he had frostbite of the todger, stuff we didn't really need to know about. He and Meghan have been lauding it up over in America, telling anyone that wants to listen how awful his upbringing was, how terrible it was being a member of the royal family. Well, King Charles didn't say anything. The palace didn't issue any statements, but very quietly, apparently earlier this year, back in January, he just went, do you know what? Don't fancy having you living there anymore. You don't live here anyway, so hop it. And he's going to give it to guess who? Prince Andrew. Absolutely amazing. Hopefully that will mean that the dreaded Duke and Duchess of Netflix will never come back here. We'll never see them ever again. So that is my idea of heaven. Matt Hancock and the lockdown files. Matt Hancock, eh? As if you didn't think he was a big enough idiot. 2 reasons why he is in this week. Here he is at the centre of everything once again. The former Secretary of State for Health, the man who took a fancy to another woman's wife and was unfortunately for him pictured with his hands on her backside. He's now raging again because guess what? He did a deal with Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel Oakeshott and he wrote a book together. He called it The Pandemic Diaries. He might as well have called it any sort of other name because what it wasn't were the Pandemic Diaries. Isabel Oakeshott, a well-known journalist of this parish, decided that all the messages that he shared with her were quite newsworthy. So what did she do? She gave them to a newspaper so that they could put them all into print. And now Matt Hancock says he's been betrayed. But hang on a minute, all of those messages were already in the public domain because he'd already given them all to the COVID inquiry, which seems to be going very slowly. Somehow they've managed to spend 85 million quid already and they haven't found anything out. How do you spend 85 million quid and discover nothing at all? They haven't even interviewed any cabinet ministers. They haven't interviewed Hancock. They haven't interviewed anybody who was involved in the government policy making decisions. Hancock claims that he's been misrepresented. But so far, I'm afraid I'm on Isabel Oakeshott's side and the side of a free press because it looks as though that people running Downing Street back in the early days of COVID hadn't got a clue what they were doing. All they were doing was trying to order a load of tests which they couldn't get, but they were trying to get them for themselves before they gave them out to anybody else. Hancock has proved himself to be a right wally, and here's what he's going to do next apparently. He's formed himself into a documentary TV company. He thinks people are going to be interested in the television that he makes. The problem with Matt Hancock is he doesn't realise everybody thinks he's a loser. He's hopeless, useless and so self-absorbed that he doesn't know that everybody's laughing at him. I think Matt Hancock should shovel himself away and disappear for a very long time. And as for Gina, the woman he left his wife for, I mean, good luck to her, because imagine waking up next to him every morning. For heaven's sake, Matt, get a grip. Matt Hancock can go to hell. Rishi's Brexit deal. I've never seen Rishi Sunak so excited. I thought he was actually going to explode. He went over to Belfast and announced that this deal had been done that was so brilliant that the Irish could have something that nobody else had got. Over in Northern Ireland, he's done something called the Windsor Accord, or the Windsor Framework. Well, why didn't he do it in Ireland and call it the Belfast Accord? But anyway, he reckons that they've got the best of both worlds in Northern Ireland because they've got not only access to the UK market, but they've got access to the European single market, which was the whole point of getting out of the European Union, wasn't it? Call me old-fashioned. I thought the point of leaving the European Union was to get out of the European single market. Of course, now all the Remainers are going, well, hang on a minute. If Northern Ireland can still be in the single market for the EU, why can't the rest of Britain? Why should they get something that we haven't got? The whole thing is a complete and utter stitch-up. Alexander, or as I call her, Ursula von der Leyen, has decided that the EU now likes Britain, when before they used to hate Britain. Nobody's really quite sure if this is all going to work. Boris Johnson reckons he can't vote for it, but everybody else is going to. But nothing's actually going to change. It's the most ridiculous waste of time and money I think I've ever seen. Rishi Sunak has created something that isn't actually real. He's created a deal which doesn't exist. He's created a document that isn't actually in law worth a fag end. So in the end, this new Brexit deal, this Windsor Accord, is a waste of time. The Windsor Agreement, or the Windsor Framework, can go to hell. Drinking wine is good for you. I mean, personally, I love a glass of wine. Apparently, top nutritionists say what you should really do for the benefit of your gut is to drink as many different varieties of wine as possible. I think they've been on the lash, these guys, because they're talking absolute nutter nonsense. If I drink too much wine, my gut doesn't feel very well at all. I have to say that you need to sometimes stop drinking as many varieties of wine if you want your gut to feel better. I don't know what these guys are going on about. It used to be that they said, have 1 glass of wine a day, preferably red, preferably Malbec, and you'll have a long life. Now they say, drink as much as you like, of all varieties of wine. So, you know, you can have the Riesling, you can have the Chardonnay, you can have the Pinot Noir, you can have the Cabernet Sauvignon. I mean, already I'm getting drunk just thinking about it. You know, how much are you supposed to drink? I mean, how many varieties of wine are there? There's probably about, I don't know, 15 or so. I had some Welsh wine the other day. I didn't even know it existed. It wasn't very good, mind you. But I don't think it did my gut any good. I think if you drink too much, I'm afraid you're not going to be spending very much time out of the toilet, would be my view. Despite the fact that I think these guys have got this completely wrong, I'm all for drinking as much as possible. So, in a way, this is actually giving me permission to drink even more than I do already. So that's got to be a heaven. In the future, you can have an extra thumb. I mean, can you imagine anything worse than having a motorised thumb? I mean, your thumbs are quite good for doing things, right? Would you want another one coming out of there to do something else with? I mean, it's already a nightmare now. I can't actually physically write anything because all I now do is tap things. And I can't actually, if I ever have to write my name, if I have to write anything down, first of all, my hand starts aching and I just can't do it anymore. So we've already lost the ability to actually write by hand. I don't want to lose any other abilities because I've got some opposable thumb that sticks out of my hand that doesn't actually belong to my body. I mean, I keep being told they're going to put a chip in there one day so that you can actually just, you know, check things out at the supermarket by doing that. Well, you can already do that with a card. So why would you need to put something into your hand? That's absolute madness. Also, the more that we let these maniacs from, you know, Silicon Valley into our bodies, the worse it's going to get because they're going to be monitoring you, they're going to be switching you off. They'll probably have the thumb which comes out of there at some point stabbing you in the eye because they don't like you or they don't like something you've said. I'm not having this. I'm not going forward anymore with this technology. Sounds like a very bad idea. Definitely my idea of hell. Listen, the only benefit I can think of having an extra thumb is too filthy to mention. Shortage? What shortage? Oh yeah, have you tried buying any tomatoes lately? People are obsessed with buying tomatoes. I mean, I can't imagine why. Because one, it's the middle of winter. Well, we might be getting into the spring. But so what if you can't get a tomato? Therese Coffey said that actually you can substitute them with turnips, which wasn't a very clever thing to say, because clearly you can't make a ham and turnip sandwich taste anything like a ham and tomato sandwich. But if you can't get any tomatoes, just deal with it. Get something else. I don't know why people are getting so worked up. We keep being told there's shortages of tomatoes, there's shortages of cucumbers, there's shortages of leeks. I mean, wherever I go, there are some things that you can buy and some things that you can't buy. But if you can't get something, get over it. What do you need tomatoes for, exactly? Cooking? Buy them in tins then. The real reason there's a shortage is because the supermarkets don't want to actually pay the money that the growers want you to pay. I'm going to say that the shortage problem is actually heaven because it gives me lots of great opportunities to take the mickey out of people who miss the fact that they can't buy a tomato. I'm Mike Graham and that's this week's Heaven and Hell.